And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a warm welcome to Missouri's 55th governor, Governor Jay Nixon.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are not Democrats or Republicans, liberals or conservatives, just people who are deeply committed to preserving our state's fish, forests, and wildlife. It's fitting that we're gathered in the historic Tiger Hotel, where a meeting took place in this very room 80 years ago that charted a course for the restoration and conservation of Missouri's beloved natural resources. On September 10th of 1935, some 100 sportsmen and conservationists gathered in this very room to discuss the sorry state of Missouri's landscape and what to do about it. We are honored today that one of those people, Bill Crawford, who was 17 at the time, is with us today. Bill, thank you for... When Lewis and Clark came through here in the early 1800s, far before Bill was born, their journals told of the bountiful wilderness they discovered. Clear water with ample fish, healthy trees, grasses, and flowering shrubs. Abundant wildlife in the air and on the land, deer and bears, elk and buffalo. But by the 1930s, when those Missourians met here, more than a century of abuse had ravaged the landscape those explorers discovered. Lumber companies cut the vast forest to build railroads spreading across a growing country. The world's largest lumber mill was going full steam in tiny Grandin, Missouri. After the trees were cut, early settlers tried to plant crops and raise goats and pigs on the rocky soil that really was good for only growing trees and wildflowers. Each rain eroded the barren hillsides into the valleys and choked the streams with gravel, filling in the deep emerald pools that were once home to fish and other aquatic life. And relentless commercial hunting and indiscriminate shooting of whatever moved emptied the woods and fields of wildlife. By the time these sportsmen met in this hotel, in this room, to discuss the problem, deer numbers were estimated at not more than 2,000 animals in our entire state, with some 3,500 wild turkeys scattered across 45 counties. It was a dark time for Missouri outdoors. And for our state to find a brighter day, it had to blaze a new trail, led by those who could be trusted with the highest responsibility of protecting and preserving our beloved natural resources. So nearly 8 decades ago, Missouri sportsmen and conservationists, just like the folks in the room today, came together and formed the Restoration and Conservation Federation of Missouri. They devised a unique plan to bring back Missouri's forests and wildlife and set them free from day-to-day politics. Instead of a law which could be changed or repealed, or an amendment through the legislature which could be whittled away by special interests, they wrote a constitutional amendment themselves and submitted it to the vote of the people of the Show Me State. On November 3rd of 1936, that amendment was approved by more than 70% of the voters. At that time, the largest margin by which any amendment to the state constitution had ever passed. The amendment replaced the old state Game and Fish Department with the Missouri Conservation Commission. The commission had a directive to create an independent, nonpartisan conservation department that would make decisions based on sound science and time-tested practices. The department was given the mandate to manage, restore, and conserve all of the state's wildlife, not just game animals. Today, looking at that arc of history, the results of these efforts are as clear as the current river as it starts in Montauk. Drive across the Ozarks today and you will see hill after forested hill spreading to the horizon. Those hills are covered with a lush growth of timber that supports a thriving wood products industry while still responsibly managing the resource. State and federal forestry departments work with soil and water districts to manage land for a sustainable crop without the need for large clear cuts. They provide aid and advice to help private landowners do exactly the same. In these wild hills and hollows, we now have a diverse and growing array of wildlife. Bears and bobcats, coyotes and quail, turkey and elk, and of course, the white-tailed deer. Remember those 2,000 deer in 1935? In the last hunting season, more than 200,000 deer were harvested in this state. Missouri's total deer population is estimated at some 1.3 million today. And those 3,500 turkeys? This spring alone, hunters in Missouri bagged more than 47,000 of these wonderful birds. Missouri's estimated wild turkey population of 600,000 consistently places our state among the nation's top turkey hunting states. Conservation efforts have also allowed millions of anglers to take advantage of Missouri's diverse fishing opportunities. One of my favorites is a result of a successful collaboration between conservation and Missouri State Parks to provide trout fishing at our 3 terrific state parks. Missouri's healthy and abundant wildlife has spurred a renewed interest in our treasured outdoor traditions and inspired a whole new generation of sportsmen and women. In fact, Missouri is in the top 10 in the nation in rankings of both resident and non-resident hunters. And each year, more and more young Missourians participate in our annual youth hunting seasons. The responsible management of our natural resources packs a significant punch for our economy as well. The state's 500,000 hunters have an economic impact of $1 billion annually and support thousands of jobs across our state. This success is not the result of some accident or coincidence. It is a result of a deliberate, thoughtful stewardship by generations of Missourians, united in the belief that the privilege we've been given to share in the blessing of God's creation also comes with a solemn responsibility to leave this place better than we found it. Now, unfortunately, the 2 strong and until now unchallenged pillars of this success, conservation's constitutional authority to manage our wildlife resources and the revenue source needed to carry it out, are both at risk right now by legislation passed in the final hours of the legislative session. And that's why I left plenty of ink in my pen. And earlier this morning, I vetoed Senate Bill 506 and House Bill 1326. Tucked into these agriculture omnibus bills is a provision that strikes at the very heart that everything that people in this room and previous generations have fought for, all to appease a single special narrow interest. These bills would redefine the term livestock in Missouri statutes to include captive cervids, or deer, and put them into the same classification as cattle and other domesticated animals. The inclusion of this language in each of these massive bills would fundamentally transform our approach to conservation in this state and undermine the progress the people in this room, both in 1935 and today, have worked so hard to build. We cannot stand by and watch 80 years of successful conservation practices be eroded by a narrow commercial interest. We cannot head back to the bad old days when wildlife decisions were made by officials worried about the next election rather than professionals committed to doing what's best for the next generation and the ones to follow that. Missouri's Conservation Department is the envy of other states. Among those who have praised it is a conservationist who defined the concept of the ethical use of land and natural resources, the late Aldo Leopold. Leopold addressed a gathering in Missouri in 1947. I'd like to close with a quote from what he said. Conservation at bottom rests on the conviction that there are things in this world more important than dollar signs and ciphers. Many of these things attach to the land, to the life that is on it and in it. People who know these things have been growing scarcer, but less so in Missouri than elsewhere. He went on to say, that is why conservation is possible here. If conservation can become a living reality, it can do so in Missouri. This is because Missourians, in my opinion, are not completely industrialized in mind and spirit, and I hope they never will be. So today, the responsibility is ours to carry on this tradition. So on behalf of our children and our grandchildren, and all Missourians for generations to come, quite simply, we will fight back, and with your help, we will win. Thank you, and God bless.